Hey, this is Tyler Crook, the co-creator of Harrow County and the creator of The Lonesome Hunters, and you are listening to the Oblivion Bar podcast.
Welcome to the Oblivion Bar podcast with your host, Chris Hacker and Aaron Knowles.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 160 of the Oblivion Bar podcast. I'm your dream detective with a dark past, Chris Hacker, and joining me this week is the Grand Marshal of this nightmare parade, my co-host and BFF, Aaron Knowles. Alrighty, everybody. If you already don't know what that is, we're going to tell you.
It's hard to emulate that music.
There's a funny reason for that, Aaron. We'll talk about it here later on during our next installment in the Midnight Rewind. This week for episode 160, we are talking about 2006's Paprika. Aaron, we wanted to bring back the Midnight Rewind after a very successful Princess Mononoke sort of retrospective celebration. We really enjoyed ourselves. So we thought, what was next? And we ultimately decided to just pick the most confusing anime of all time.
Most confusing? I feel there's definitely more confusing ones out there. Music-wise, definitely hard to emulate Paprika. But man, I don't even want to get ahead of myself because there's so many things to say about Paprika. Paprika is like one of those movies that you expect people to be talking about like after like a film festival.
Yeah.
You know, some highbrow director, like put out some cinephile made something that like nobody understood. And they now like years later or moments later after they watched it, they're like, my life is different.
Yeah. It's changed me. I'm different on the inside.
Yeah.
I mean, that really is Paprika. And we'll get into it. And for everyone that's curious, during all of our Midnight Rewinds, we're only covering the film. We're not doing news and notes. We're not doing Chris's Corner, Aaron's Arcade, anything else. It is just going to be 100% Paprika because we honestly, Aaron, need the time to discuss this film. There's a lot to uncover, a lot of layers, right? Like Shrek. So
yes.
much like Paprika, Shrek, a lot of things to contemplate.
They should have called this movie Parfait.
I love a parfait.
I'll have a parfait.
Alrighty, but before we get into that Midnight Rewind, Aaron, will you please tell the listeners how they can support the Oblivion Bar podcast?
All right. So the best way, besides word of mouth, besides sharing, besides reviewing, besides all those free ways of, life is a highway. But anyways, free ways, okay, of supporting the Oblivion Bar pod, okay, we have our Patreon, which is patreon.com/Oblivion Bar pod. For your support, you get access to so many things. The Grid, which is our weekly episode that is the Oblivion Bar pod, After Dark, Unfiltered, Untamed. It's like a wild caveman just going.
What's he going like?
And it's all. I think that's
accurate.
He's talking about the stock market.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's our weekly bonus podcast. It's just a bunch of fun. It's us talking about anything and everything, not really having a format, just kind of, again, brain dumping in this digital sandbox that we have created for ourselves. Mm-hmm. You also get access to episode transcripts so you can see what we're talking about before the shows even air. You get early access to the normal feed episodes. You get a special shout out at the end of those episodes, which you'll hear later on from me. I love doing it. It's very special to me. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it's the best way to support the show because we take everything we get from Patreon and we put it back into the show. If you talk to any of the other Patreon members, that you'll see exactly that. We put everything back into it because we want to make a better product for all of our fans, all of our listeners.
And also, we just released episode 130, which is our most recent episode, to the public. So if you want to get sort of a teaser of what we offer over on Patreon on the Grid, you can go listen to that for free. Just literally go to our RSS feed now that you're listening to this on and go check that out. We talk about all of our original art that we own. So that was a pretty fun episode.
Chris sent it to me and, I was listening to it and I'm just like kind of giving him the play-by-play of that episode. And it's like, I'm not going to call it word vomit or just like going off at the hinges, off the rails. Yeah. But it's fun to like look back, listen to it and kind of discuss what came out of our mouth.
Yeah. Because again, there's no format. It's not like this where one could argue that even what we do here is sort of sporadic and all over the place, but imagine having no
One could?
yeah, imagine like no format whatsoever. That's what's on the grid. So once again, patreon.com/Oblivion Bar Pod. Aaron, again, we need all the time that we can get with this episode. We need to dive in headfirst into the dream world that is Paprika. Hey Aaron, how do you like to read your comic books digitally?
Chris, it's funny that you should say that. I just started buying and reading my comics on Omnibus.
Ooh, interesting. I actually heard from a little birdie. It's actually backed by some of the top publishers in the medium. It also hosts an extensive back catalog from Image Comics, Boom Studios, Dark Horse, Ahoy Comics, Titan, Vault, and many more. And most importantly, Omnibus supports in-app purchases.
That little birdie's called X now. But also, Omnibus has officially been made reading and buying comics digitally the easiest it's ever been.
Wow, that's incredible. And you know what I'm going to do, Aaron? I'm actually going to go right now to my iPad iOS device and download Omnibus. And also right after that, I'm going to go follow them over on social media at the Omnibus app.
Omnibus, for fans, by fans.
Make this whole planet suffer!
He'd like to come too, please.
I wouldn't miss an adventure like this for anything in the world. What did you people do? The time of atonement is upon us! Are your hearts prepared? The time is nigh!
He's developed so much power in such a short time, it's unbelievable.
Keep away!
Is that what Tetsuo's doing? Are you saying he has that kind of energy?
Alrighty, here we are for our second Midnight Rewind. Aaron and I love that intro, by the way. I'm pretty sure we're going to get copyrighted with that again, but I don't care. It's worth it every time. I just love it because I created it. Like I made that. So it wasn't like I just like took all that from, I mean, obviously it is, little parts of different highlighted parts of the anime, but I created it. So I'm going to keep it.
It's an homage.
It's an homage. Yeah, it's an homage.
Yeah.
Right. So welcome back everybody to our next installment, our second installment of Midnight Rewind, where again, this is something that Aaron and I wanted to do. We wanted to highlight some of our favorite animes throughout time. Aaron is much more of the anime weeb as I like more than I am. Like I am sort of I'm the bystander here. I mostly just kind of set the transcripts up, but I want Aaron to sort of take control of these episodes because he is much more of the subject matter expert when it comes to Eastern animation.
I can remember sitting down on the couch with my dad and watching like midnight sessions of anime on the Sci-Fi Channel, and it's just a core memory. It's an amazing feeling. Even though some of them I learned quickly are probably not ones that a kid of my age should be watching, but I didn't care. It was amazing.
I think that's kind of that's sort of the benefit. I think just to kind of briefly go on a quick tangent right off the top of the segment. That's sort of the benefit of anime and that Eastern animation is that they don't really hold the hand of the youth that are probably watching this. And I wouldn't say that Paprika or, most anime even is really for children necessarily, but I think you can enjoy it as a young person and still pick up a lot of the adult themes that are in it. There's a difference. I think there's a very distinct difference between Western and Eastern animation and I think that's the main difference outside of, I think also a giant quality difference. Eastern animation is far better looking, a lot more well done than I would say Western animation.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a strong part of their cinematic like revenue, and it has been for the longest time because of manga, because of anime films, and for the longest time, obviously, I mean, let's not forget, America's only been around for a couple hundred years, man. And so if you think about it, in that amount of time, like anime's been prominent, and we're just like thinking that, oh, cartoons are for kids, so we only put a kid amount of money and a kid amount of industrial backing and support behind it. Where again, Japan and all these other countries have this massive support structure because they know how important it is to their their industry.
And we've talked about it before, but the Japanimation movement started like it's been around forever, as you just said, but I think it really hit here in the US right around the time in the 90s, or I'd say like late 80s, early 90s with Funimation, Bandai, Saban Entertainment. They began licensing anime out into syndication, which made it more popular for young people like you and myself to watch it on Midnight Run and Toonami. And I think, as we've said before, there's a strong argument for 2024 anime is the most popular it has ever been. When you go to New York Comic Con, you go to San Diego Comic Con, you don't see a giant Batman, you see a giant Goku. Yeah. Anime is huge. And I think just the other day I was at Barnes & Noble, and when you go to the graphic novel section, there are 4 to 5, not even 4 to 5, 1 or 2 shelves for American comics. And then there are 4 giant manga section areas.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Look at these conventions that we go to, and I guarantee you're going to see Demon Slayer. You're going to see all these like Naruto. Don't
Either
yell
or.
at me. Actually,
we don't want any emails after this episode. Don't send us. We don't want them.
Send them. Tweet us.
Tweet us. We'll get the engagement.
Yes, but that's the thing. Is like you go to any of these conventions, and you will see nowadays. You will see a lot more people dressed up as anime characters than you will like a lot of American superheroes these days. So it's great to see. It is honestly great to see anime coming into the States and really making a prominent success for itself.
Right. And I think the last point we'll make before we get into Paprika is that these Midnight Rewinds are meant to just be a discussion, a celebration. These are not
a review.
Not a review. We're not going to give it a rating like we normally do with most of our films, television series, or video games. This is strictly just a moment for Aaron and I to talk through some of our favorite installments or some of our sort of lesser dark horse favorites in the anime world. Again, we picked Princess Mononoke for our first installment. We're talking about Paprika for this installment. At some point, we're going to get into some silly ones, some things that aren't as celebrated, but I think it was important to Aaron and I that we both picked coveted, loved installments in the annals of anime history, because I feel like it deserves discussion, right? Because when looking into the film of Paprika, there's not a ton of discussion about this movie. Like it is known among the masses as one of the greatest, and yet very few people are talking about it in a significant way outside of the fact that it resembles Inception, which we will talk about later in this discussion. So
I'd also love to challenge our listeners as well. If you have a movie that you think, an anime film that you think that we should talk about, send it to us. Let us know. We have a growing list because I've sent Chris multiple lists of just fun movies because again, I grew up watching these. This was kind of an escape for me. It's a particular genre that I really enjoyed, and again, it kind of motivated me to my dream. And hopefully, I'm going to do it this coming February for my birthday. I want to go to Japan for my 40th birthday. God, 40 years old, man. I am old as fuck.
You old motherfucker.
You old motherfucker. But
looking like the chairman in this movie, just an old tentacle looking motherfucker.
Hey, and he literally was a chairman. Anyways, should we get into the summary, Chris?
Well, you said something so spot on that Bert just perfectly transitioned us into sort of our initial thoughts of Paprika, which is, you said escape. And I think if there's nothing that is more of a central pillar in this movie, it is escapism. And I'll sort of give my initial thoughts here just off the top, is that Paprika, to me, when I watched it, of course, I was like, what the fuck is happening? What is going on? Right? And I think as you go on throughout the movie, you start to realize that what the filmmaker is trying, which we'll get into here in just a moment, what Khan is trying to say is that the relationship between cinema and our dreams, whether that be actual dreams or metaphysical dreams, escapism can be a tool that can be blunted. If we use escapism too much, it becomes sort of a downfall. And that was sort of my takeaway, is that the line between our dreams and what we want in this world can be blurred and almost unattainable if we lean one way or the other. So, of course, outside of that, which we will obviously dive into, it's a beautiful film. I mean, this movie came out in 2006, and this is my favorite version of anime. Was it Dragon Ball Superhero not too long ago, where it was a different kind of animation? And I made a very distinct point of sort of pointing out that I didn't love that. This right here, and of course, like the hand-drawn, overworked version of Studio Ghibli from the 80s, this is my favorite version of just animation in general, not just Eastern animation, but just animation in general.
So there's a quote in this film that I wanted to read, and it comes from the main character. Well, not necessarily by namesake only, the main character. It's from Paprika, and she says, the internet and dreams are similar. They are areas where the repressed conscious mind escapes.
Yeah.
And that really stood out to me because I really felt that this movie was a metaphor, especially now with how prominent the internet is in our day-to-day life and what we use it for, which is escapism. And we almost, if you talk to anybody who is trying to just like go for that grind, trying to make their dreams come true, what are they doing? They're probably sleeping very little. So their dreams are not their escape anymore. But what happens when people weaponize your dreams or the place where you escape to? And that's where this movie kind of stood for me, was we're entering this era, this age of society where almost every single thing that we use, that we enjoy, is being weaponized against us. And this, to me, was the metaphor of this movie, was that what happens when we start trying to take control of a realm in our lives that means so much to us and is so helpful to not only our health but our minds, and then use it against our enemies.
And also, you made a good point there a moment ago when talking about the internet, in that it seems as we continue to rely on technology and the internet becomes more of a central pillar in our lives, we are more connected. Like Aaron, you and I, we live in different states. You live in New York, I live in Indiana. We're connected, but we're further away. Like, had we not had the internet, maybe we would see each other more in person. Maybe we would make more of an effort to see each other on a more of a constant basis. And that goes across the entire spectrum of the internet, whether that be social media or the way that we ingest news or the way that we retain knowledge, because believe it or not, we're not experts on anything. And the only reason why we know anything is because of the internet. We don't have encyclopedias anymore, and we don't really have to know anything because I can just
don't have the need to retain knowledge these days is non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, kids.
Let me Google it. I'm gonna Google it.
Kids are given tablets in school. Kids are given computers and laptops, which I'm not saying, I'm not that boomer that's like, kids should be researching in libraries. No, when we were coming through schools, we didn't have to use cursive as much. When my parents were going through schools, like, cursive was the big thing because cursive was what was professional and looked good. Where nowadays, if, when I was going through school, typing was the biggest, tool that you needed because everything was done on computers. And these days, like, kids don't even learn how to type. They don't even learn how to use
they don't
full
need to.
form letters. Yeah. They don't have to,
because they are born with a keyboard in front of them. So they have all of violence and news and everything is in their pocket. So they are grown up knowing how to use a keyboard compared to us who had to take typing classes and whatnot. I wonder what that is, though. I'm curious. You brought that up. I wonder what the new, is it coding maybe? Is it?
Yeah. I would say it's coding, and that's the other thing is,
design.
Design. They don't really teach strategic thinking anymore in classes either. But the thing that I would be curious about is, so I know growing up for me, again, we're kind of getting off the topic here, but video games.
We'll tie it back in.
Yeah. Video games for me were an escape because there was an amazing story that usually all the games that I played had, like Final Fantasy and Gears of War and Halo. They had these amazing in-depth stories that took you literally to other worlds as an escape. The internet, you could watch a movie, you could dive into a story, whatever, as an escape. Kids today, I would love to know what they're using as an escape, because with all the stress and everything that's out there, what are they using to escape? Because the attention span is almost so minimal these days that there's not really. So I would like to know what that escape is that, is so important.
And we remember what it was like to have to tune in every Tuesday to watch a new episode of The Office. Nowadays, kids can turn on Netflix and it's like they're War and Peace. They can just watch Dwight Schrute go from being 26 at the beginning of the show to being 40 at the end of it. It's wild the way we ingest media nowadays. And it's funny, you made a comparison to, you keep setting me up, so thank you for that, where one of the characters in this movie, Detective Konokawa, and forgive me, I'm just going to quick banner disclaimer here. We're going to butcher, at least I'm going to butcher every single name that I can during the discussion of this movie, both as voice actors and also the characters themselves. But Detective Konokawa, his sort of relationship to the dream world is through film. Like, he talks about how he doesn't love film, but that's not true. He loves film, right? And Paprika is sort of teasing him throughout the movie that it's his over reliance of film is where the line is blurred between dream and reality.
So again, we'll talk. we need to get into the story.
Well, and
like,
I want to make a point really quickly, just
Yeah.
to kind of tie that before we move on to the summary, is that is my escape. Just
Yeah.
exposing my underbelly right at the beginning of this discussion is that everyone that listens to the show often, Aaron, you definitely know this, is that I go to the movies a lot. And when I've moved to other cities that I've never been to, what do? I go to the movies all the time. It's just what I do. When I moved to St. Louis from Indiana, I went to the movies 3-4 times a month, maybe more, honestly. I do it now. When I was going through cancer, the first thing that I did, both after surgery and after I got a chemo, I went to see a movie. Because it's the ultimate escapism. It's a connection, right? I feel connected to a story when I'm watching it on the big screen. And I think there's a direct conversation happening in this movie to that exact thought, that cinema is, at least in the opinion of, again, I'm gonna butcher the name here, Satoshi Kon, he believes that film is the ultimate escape. I think that's the central conversation he's trying to have here, is that film and dreams act as the same deterrent of our escapism. That's sort of, I'll leave it there. We'll continue on here, but Aaron, go ahead and give us a summary of Paprika, just for some reason. And again, spoilers ahead. If you have not seen Paprika, I mean, truthfully, you could listen to this entire conversation and still
have
be wowed.
no idea what it's about.
Yeah, just be absolutely bamboozled by what you actually see on the screen.
Yeah, that's the next like spoiler banner type announcement here is. We could tell you every detail about this movie, and the moment that you push play, you're gonna be like, "What the fuck am I watching?
Is going on?"
Like they didn't explain this to me. Nobody told me about this. There's a problem with my checking and my savings, and
so think about my checking and my savings that they're separate. Yeah.
So adapted from Yasutaka Tsutsui's 1993 novel of the same name and set in a quote unquote distant future of 2012, a newly created device called the DC Mini. No affiliation with the universe, allows the user to view people's dreams. Paprika is about a battle between a dream terrorist who steals a device that allows others to share their dreams and causes nightmares for everyone. So think of, if you're a Pokemon fan, think of Darkrai. That's what he does. He just shares his dreams. So the research psychologist, Dr. Chiba Atsuko, attempts to enter the dream world and become Paprika, a dream detective alter ego to investigate these cases. So when you think of Paprika and Dr. Atsuko, think of like, I don't even want to call her like Batman, because there's not a clear like differentiate. They're almost like two separate like personas in the same body, because and that's the cool thing about this movie, is that at certain points they actually engage with each other in the real world. So
I don't think that's a terrible comparison, though. I think that one of my favorite Batman stories is Batman Ego, where Bruce Wayne and Batman have a conversation with each other and sort of come to grips with the differences in the way that they approach life. And I think that there's a very similar conversation here happening between Dr. Atsuko and Paprika. Paprika is sort of, she's sort of gleefully curious, right? Yeah. Where it seems like Dr. Atsuko has sort of been beaten down by life, and she just wants to get to the bottom of it. There's no journey here.
So the question, that's what I wanted to ask you, is did you watch it with subtitles or did you watch it dubbed?
Okay, perfect. Yes, thank you for bringing that up, because I meant to put that in here somewhere. I watched the dub version.
Okay, so I watched the subtitle version, and we all know, like, that's one thing. If in case you don't know, in the Japanese anime like realm, you can watch very different films, dubbed versus subbed. So where there might have been a conversation that like had a different implication in the dubbed, it might have had a completely different, again, outcome or discussion topic, or just translation in general in the subbed version. So,
well, what's interesting about that is that I watched, it was the dubbed version, but the subtitles were subtitles from the Japanese film.
Okay.
So I'm reading different words as I'm watching the film. And I wanted to point out really quick while we're talking about it, I had never seen this movie before. This is the very first time I'd ever seen it. When you recommended that we talk about it, or I can't remember if you recommended it, if I recommended it, regardless, I didn't own it, never seen it. I bought the 4K. I bought the Steelbook 4K for this because I just knew that regardless of whether I liked the film or not, it was worth at least owning in my library because it is an anime classic. And while watching it, I think that if you're going to watch it in 2024, I highly recommend, because I don't think it's streaming anywhere, highly recommend the 4K. Oh, Tubi is showing it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you want to watch on Tubi, that's fine. But I think if you really want the best version of this, check out the 4K. It is a beautiful sort of remastering of this already incredible looking film.
So one thing, a quick note about Tsutsui is he's well regarded as the father of postmodern science fiction in Japan. He also faced a lot of criticism for refusing to shy away from writing about things that were considered taboo in Japan, such as being critical of the imperial government. So that's something that kind of think about when watching this movie and seeing how it kind of ties into the actual film. It doesn't really translate, I don't think, too well into the movie, but that's just something to think about.
People have sort of conflicting thoughts on him because he has gone through a lot of controversies throughout the years. Of course, he was, as you said there, sort of the pioneer of postmodernism in terms of science fiction, but he also has had some weird views, some weird comments out in public. Like he says at one point, he was criticized by posting a tweet referring to the Statue of Peace, a memorial of victims of sexual slavery in World War II, stating that girl is cute. Everyone, let's go ejaculate in front of her and shower her with semen on Twitter. So clearly the man has interesting ideas. Let's just say he's the modern H.P. Lovecraft of the Japanese science fiction world. Like he's got some interesting ideas, but seems like a pretty uncool guy overall.
Yeah.
You're such a bad person. Like, all the way through to your core.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But of course,
that's going to be a no from me, dog.
it's but I'll say the director, again, Satoshi Kon, comes in and sort of brings it all together, right?
Yes.
Like he takes this idea, this already sort of brilliant idea from this very ill man and, makes it better. Well, let's just be honest. It is better.
Which has been done in the past. Let's just, acknowledge the fact that there's been a lot of creative people with some fucked up thoughts that kind of wrote and create some pretty amazing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily they had somebody translate it and create something else. One of the biggest things that we don't really get explained well about this, like when you're going through this film, is like, is this a dream? Are we exploring dreams, or are we exploring nightmares? And what is where is this going?
But I think that's interesting because I don't think they want to. I think that was the point, is that the blurring of reality and fiction was meant to reference a dream. I mean, think about the last time you hit REM and you had a crazy dream and you think, what is this? Like, is it a memory? It's like a mixture of a memory. It's a mixture of an impulse. It's a mixture of a fear, of a goal. Like, there's so many things that go into a dream. And I think that's sort of the genius of this movie, is that the blurred lines that they, again, as you just said, I love the idea that they're not explaining it to us. We have to sort of think about it scene to scene, right?
There's a movie that I love, and this is what it very much reminded me of. It's a movie called, and I'm pretty sure I brought it up on the show before, called Waking Life, where it's a movie that's recorded and captured like in with real actors having real discussion, real people having real discussions about basically being fully conscious within your dream realm, within REM sleep, and the experiences that people have had or have been able to, the things they've been able to accomplish by being, there's an actual term behind it. But anyways, that's what this reminded me a lot of, is the fact that DC Mini device from this movie allows people basically to experience the fiction of their dreams in almost reality terms, in that waking dream kind of, like, I guess, conscious level. So it's so interesting to have a almost noirish detective who, like, kind of mystery movie in that realm.
Yeah, it's a perfect blend of, like you said, noir and science fiction, because a lot of the times when you're dealing with a noir film, it's so grounded in reality, right? And like there's like, people are like so mirrored to the real world in that way. And then science fiction, of course, is generally a high concept science fiction idea like this is usually so far out there that it's so heady, and you're like, how can I ground myself in this story? How do I put myself in the POV of the main characters? And what I think Paprika does so well is that it mixes the both. It's an investigative story about this extremely heady, high concept science fiction idea.
Yeah. And I think that, again, Satoshi Kon, the director, set out to prove that fiction and reality are not opposing concepts, but both homogenous in the sense that they are both like painted things. And the interesting thing that resonated with me, and something I kind of thought about a lot in the past, and that's, again, I think that's the kind of the foundation of a great film, is it gets you thinking about things that are not of that film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this movie had me thinking the fact that reality itself is relative to the person experiencing it. These things that we experience on a day-to-day basis could absolutely be almost dreamlike to somebody else who has no idea what our reality is.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're
so
all unreliable narrators.
Yeah, we're all exactly. And so it's really interesting to be able to put that kind of concept into a movie, and then like we've been talking about, as the movie progresses, blur that line more and more and more to the point where, just like society today, the more we blur the internet and the things that we experience on our devices and our reality, the more we blur it, the less we actually experience our own reality. We're experiencing other people's reality. And that's what that's what I feel like this movie is kind of bringing and putting in front of us, is the fact that a dream or a nightmare, it does not matter what it is, because when you start experiencing somebody else's reality, it can quickly become either or.
And we don't trust it either. That's the other important aspect, is that the more that we begin to rely on these aspects, we start to distrust other people, ourselves, which we see in this film. And I thought what was really interesting, one of the aspects I really loved, was the parade, sequence there, where in the novel, I think nightmares are sort of shown in a different light, but this film is only an hour and 30 minutes long. So it's not that long. Like I remember at one point when I could sort of sense, like my cinema brain was starting to click and go, wait, we're getting towards the end of this film. I'm like not gathering any of this. What's going on? Once we were getting towards the end, I think what they had to do, and I think that's sort of what Khan was sort of hinting at, is that the nightmare sequence is the parade. Throughout the entire film, we see this parade going throughout this city, and that is a nightmare. That is the nightmare, because it's a mixed mash of all these different things. Khan said he found it difficult to portray various dreams in different ways as in the original, so Khan decided to focus on a dream image that would be symbolic throughout the film, and that would be instantly recognizable as a nightmare when it appeared. According to Khan, the parade scene was something that he and Susumu Hirasawa.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Composer of the film, they created this concept together. And of course, Aaron sort of articulated this at the beginning of the conversation, this crazy parade noise that is haunting, that we'll talk about how they created that here in just a moment. But that's not people, by the way, just so you're aware. That's a spoiler for what we're about to talk about. That's not anyone singing. That is artificially created. So Aaron, let's talk about the director here.
Yeah, Satoshi Kon. Paprika was actually Kon's fourth and final feature film before his battle with pancreatic cancer took his life, unfortunately, in 2010. He is best known for his acclaimed anime films Perfect Blue back in 1997, Millennium Actress in 2001, and Tokyo Godfathers in 2003, which, if you've never seen Tokyo Godfathers, again, that is another one. That is another iconic anime film that you need to go back and watch. And, you'll feel the similarities, but at the same time, that is such a unique film that you need to experience.
I think Perfect Blue is something we're definitely going to cover also here. It is in a similar vein as Paprika of a what movie? That
might
happening?
Be most anime.
Yeah, that's true. But I think very specifically, like when I think of heady sort of let's talk about multiple things anime, I think of truly the first two things I think about are Paprika and Perfect Blue. And I think Aaron, when you continue on here, you'll sort of see the influence that was taken, because as Americans do, what do we do best, Aaron? We take good ideas and we steal them and we make them our own.
And we whitewash them.
That's right.
That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far.
That's what we do, America.
We what do you call it? We appropriate people's
we take really good ideas and we make them worse, but they're still good because we don't know that they're other good ideas.
Yes. So directors Darren Aronofsky and Guillermo del Toro have seen Kon as a major influence on them throughout their careers. Aronofsky specifically said that many scenes and concepts in Requiem for a Dream, which that makes sense, and Black Swan were also influenced by Kon, and that he still wants to make a live action version of Perfect Blue.
If you've seen Black Swan, it is Perfect Blue. It's that. It is exactly that movie. It's just to a T, and in a very similar way that Paprika closely resembles another film that we will talk about here in just a moment. Their concepts are so intrinsically similar that you're like, there's no way that they couldn't be aping this. Like, there's no way that Aronofsky and this other director, again, we'll talk about here in a moment, there's no way that they didn't take these ideas and make them their own.
Yeah, exactly. It's not funny, but it's funny.
It's funny, but it's not funny.
Yeah, Satoshi Kon was an uncredited assistant artist on Katsuhiro Otomo's iconic manga Akira. That's
pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
The film was co-written by Seiichi Minakami. Minakami is a prolific screenwriter who has worked on series like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, A Certain Magical Index, and the Beyblade series,
which I've heard is good. I know we think of Beyblade, we're like, oh, that crappy toy that your mom would buy you instead of Pokemon cards.
Top! Attack top! Go get him!
40 points!
Centrifugal force! Centrifugal! I don't know what it is, but go get him, spinning blade!
I've heard it's good. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard good things.
I've heard good things.
I'm kidding. If you're a Beyblade fan, I'm sorry.
A Beyblade babe?
Babe,
no.
No, babe.
Man, we just
Bay.
Successfully tied in Paprika to and Beyblade to Hot Rod.
Babe, wait! Babe, wait, babe, no! Babe, no! Babe, no! Babe!
All right, let's talk about the production house. So we got Madhouse. A lot of people now, of course, Aaron is a total weeb, so he's familiar with Madhouse. I was not, and I had to look up and see why Madhouse was so prolific. Founded in 1973, Madhouse is currently a staple in the anime industry. Mm-hmm. They have animated such series as Wicked City, Ninja Scroll, Perfect Blue, Vaname Hunter D, Bloodlust. What'd I say?
Vaname,
Vampire Hunter D, Trigon DG Charat, I don't know. Black Lagoon, Death Note, Paprika, of course, Wolf Children, Parasite, The Maxim, the first season of One Punch Man, the second adaptation of Hunter x Hunter, Overlord, and the I don't know what is that right there?
Frieren
Beyond Journey End. I'm gonna keep all this and I'm not cutting any of this out. So all those things, which I'm sure if you're familiar with anime, you know what all that is, and you love it all, and you own the manga, and you have the poster in your room, and you have the plush. I don't know what most of that is. I've seen One Punch Man. I'm familiar with.
I'm gonna give you a quick rundown, Chris.
Okay.
All right. If you enjoyed Wicked City, you're kind of gross, but also sexy demons. Ninja Scroll. You are old school anime fan. If you enjoyed Ninja Scroll, that's like old school samurai. Okay. Perfect Blue. You already know. Vampire Hunter D, Bloodlust. You're fucking like you are an old head like me when it comes to like vampires and shit. Trigun, absolute. You're my boy. Trigun is one of those old school ones that's so good. Vash the Stampede is one of the greatest anime characters ever. DG Charat, never heard of it. Black Lagoon, I have. Oh, it's okay. Death Note, I watched the entire thing. It is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The Netflix one was garbage.
Don't watch the live action. I even know that.
Paprika, duh. Wolf Children, never saw it. Parasite, The Maxim. Parasite is insane. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they've made multiple Netflix shows you how good it is.
Yeah.
So, and then also One Punch Man is just phenomenal and fun.
One Punch! So. I love One Punch Man. I can't deny. Madhouse recruited and developed some of the most important directors in anime history. Again, forgive me. Creators like Morio Asaka, Metsusuke Kojima, and of course, Satoshi Kon during the 1990s. Aaron, was that good? Was that pretty good? Good, not great.
Yeah, it'll do. The composer, Susumu Hirasawa, he was mostly known for his work with Kon and the animated adaptation of the Berserk manga series, which if you don't know what Berserk is, get out from under your fucking rock, because Berserk is one of the most badass animes and mangas of all time. Like, we're talking the main character, Guts. His name is Guts, and he's like got like one eye. He is so bad. Like, okay, I'm gonna give you a quick rundown on Guts. Okay, when he's a kid, like his parents are killed, his whole village is destroyed. He starts training with a sword, and as he trains with his sword, he wraps it in wood logs and trains with it, and when he gets better at it, he makes the sword bigger and then adds logs and keeps training. So he's walking around like this countryside with this massive sword, and he's like this huge fucking dude. It's the most badass thing.
Can I share a quick moment? When I was in Washington, DC, and I met up with Brad Gullickson, good friend of the show, co-host of the Comic Book Couples Counseling. We went to Third Eye Comics, which is one of the most popular comic stores in the entire US. And at one point we got into the manga section, and I was like, what is your relationship with manga? Is there anything that you would recommend? Like, if I wanted to get into manga, what would you pick? And he immediately went to Berserk. Like, that was the one that he said. And he goes, highly recommend it. You've just got 60 volumes to read. So go crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd actually recommend. So I read majority of Attack on Titan, which was really good as a manga as well. But anyways, the Paprika soundtrack is notable for being one of the first film scores to use Vocaloid for vocals. Chris, do you know what a Vocaloid is?
You're about to talk about it, and it's exactly what we heard in the parade.
A Vocaloid is a synthesized vocal track which makes it possible to create vocals for music without having an actual person sing them. So
scary.
I feel like the best way to describe this in like the most layman's terms is just think of like a keyboard with like voices kind of attached to each like note. Key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and each note is like a different voice. So just imagine that. So it's like
again, refer to the parade song because that's exactly what it is.
Chris will enter it here.
Hopefully, I don't get copywritten. Again, hour and 30 minutes. It's a quick. Honestly, it did not go slowly. Like, I felt like this movie was at 100% from the jump. There was no real there are moments where you're sort of having a conversation between two characters, but it's all very important to the story. There's no fat on this. They cut all the fat off. Aaron, cast. Good luck.
Cast. Okay. So Paprika and Dr. Atsuko Chiba is Megumi Hayashibara, or for the dubbed, Cindy Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Kusaku Tokita is Toru Furuya.
We're getting a rare struggle from Aaron.
Yeah. The dubbed is Yuri Lowenthal. It's so easy when they're
when they're
not
American.
Japanese. Torataro Shima is Katsunusuke Hori, David Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
Toshimi Konokawa, which is the detective. Akio Otsuka, Paul St. Peter. Himuro Kei is Daisuke Sakaguchi. That's Brian Beacock. You're going to love this one. Dr. Saijiro Inui. Toru Emori is Michael Forrest. And Dr. Morio Osanai. Koichi Yamadera. Doug Erholtz.
Yeah.
You're fucking welcome.
That was pretty good. Yeah. That's far better than what I could have ever done. But say the actress who voiced Paprika in 3, 2, 1.
Megumi Hayashibara
is one of the most well-known and prolific anime actresses of all time, particularly in anime in the 90s. Her voice can be heard in series like Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Get the Eva, Shinji!
Cowboy Bebop and Detective Conan. She is also a very successful singer in Japan as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Pretty cool. All right, cool. Aaron, we are here. We are here at what I think most people are probably expecting us to talk about, and we're going to talk about the similarities between this film and Christopher Nolan's Inception.
Okay, I'm good. Before we start this conversation piece, okay, I'm gonna throw this out there. Did not think about this.
Not once.
Not a single fucking time. Not a single time.
Okay. See,
and I think that.
Oh, go ahead.
When? Okay, I'm sure we'll bring it up. When did Inception come out?
2010. So this movie came out 4 years before Inception.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure I saw this movie before I saw Inception. So maybe that's why.
Okay. Yeah, it's like when people listen to the Beatles, and they're people who have never are like not huge music fans, and they listen to the Beatles like, oh my God, I love the Beatles. But if you go back, like say you're like a giant music head and you go back and try to listen to the discography of Beatles, you're like, oh, I've heard that. Same thing with like Blade Runner. When you go back and watch Blade Runner, you're like, oh, I've seen all of this done better somewhere else. Like it's just one of those things where history takes certain parts of a great thing. And I think with Inception, Aaron, I'm going to let you take this part because I'm curious. You again are not familiar with this. I did a deep dive with this. Again, shout out to Brad Gullickson, who was one of the founders and runners of Film School Rejects. They did an incredible article on this from 2017 that talks about the similarities between Paprika and Inception and how there's too many similarities for it not to be connected somehow.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My name's Paul McCartney, and I'm a Beatle.
And I'm a Beatle.
And I'm a Beatle.
I'm John Lennon.
I
can't do a John Lennon. I can't do a John Lennon.
So yes, like Chris said, we're going to refer to a special article by a good friend of ours, the Film School Rejects, The Synergy of Inception and Paprika, from 2017. Several critics and scholars have noted many striking similarities that later appeared in the 2010 Christopher Nolan film Inception. Plot similarities, similar scenes, similar characters. Let me see your homework. Chris.
You got that let me see that homework attitude.
See that homework. I literally just use that same line because Marvel is doing this new game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically, it looks exactly like Overwatch. It's basically Overwatch with Marvel skins, and
I think I saw that as well.
Yeah. Anyways, so fans have argued that Inception was influenced by Paprika based on similarities too numerous to be coincidence. The focus on dream sharing tech, Arianda's wardrobe to Greek mythology, physics-defying hallways, not to be specific or anything, significant dream elevators, really, and the choice of having a Japanese businessman be the one to hire Cobb and the dream team, among other things. So one undeniable link is the climactic dream sequence when Paprika is trying to escape the chairman and his helper, and she defies gravity by running across the walls instead of the floor.
Yeah, that's where my movie brain went, whoa, I've seen this before. And it was where at one point, I think it's Detective Kanagawa is, so what's haunting him throughout this movie is that he has this unsolved mystery of this murder. And his dream starts off at a circus and then eventually transitions into this hallway where it starts to sort of turn and warp. All I saw was Joseph Gordon-Levitt beating some dude's ass in a hallway that's flipping upside down. Like it's the exact same imagery, right? And then at one point, again, as you just said, there's an elevator scene where they're going to different dreams throughout this elevator. And as actually said in the French films, from the French film site, Excessive claimed in 2010 that Nolan cited Paprika as an influence on Elliot Page's character Ariana in the film, a claim that was repeated by Phil de Semlin of Empire, but the Film School Rejects and Anime News Network noted that there was no direct quote from Nolan that has given support to this claim. So I say all that, and I think we cover all this to say that what I find really interesting is that Christopher Nolan has not ever commented on this. He's never directly confirmed or denied that Paprika was a direct inspiration or sort of skeleton for Inception. But I think the evidence is damning. There's just absolutely no way. There's no way.
With the amount of coincidences, that's ridiculously too many to be ignored.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into our fun facts here, and then we'll sort of surmise our thoughts on Paprika, because I think we've gone pretty in depth with this movie. Again, there's a lot to talk about, and Aaron and I, if you couldn't tell throughout the recording, we were sort of spinning our wheels trying to decide how we wanted to talk about it. It's a lot. This is definitely a movie that you should just go see yourself.
Yeah, there's so many different elements, and one thing that always got me about this film until I think this watch that I finally understood was especially like Detective Konakawa's character, because it took me a while to understand. He said that he killed himself. He had this. The whole intro to this movie is Paprika trying to help Detective Konakawa deal with some trauma, something that's giving him anxiety, that's giving him problems doing his job, and she's doing that basically by it's like therapy. It's a type of therapy where you experience something like immersive therapy, and this is almost like the most true form of immersive therapy. And one line it's like he's holding a smoking gun one time because he's at the end of this hallway and he's like, did I kill myself? I killed myself. And what I finally understood during this watch is that he didn't kill himself. It's a metaphor for his dreams, because he and a friend during school had a shared dream of creating movies. And he thought by becoming a cop, because he couldn't face these movies or face that goal and dream of movies, he felt that he had killed himself and his friend by betraying that dream. And then what he ends up realizing through Paprika's help and through the help of this DC Mini is that he didn't kill himself. He actually fulfilled both of their dreams by making their film a reality and he becoming a cop. And that allowed him to process the tragedy of his friend who died, and he didn't betray him. So I was like, that's such a deep moment in this film. It's really interesting to finally have understand a pivotal plot point in a film after this many years. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And, speaking on that, it's again, talking on the therapy plot point, Cillian Murphy in Inception. The whole thing is about having him process the relationship that he had with his father to get him to sell his company to the chairman there in that film. So
not to mention the relationship that Cobb has.
Yeah.
With his dead wife that he's trying to put in his past, because she dies and he's still trying to, it's almost the same thing. He's trying to deal with the fact that she's dead.
Yeah.
And he's trying to figure out where is it my fault? So that's a very similar
Don't go in the basement.
Well. Don't go in the basement.
Yeah. Don't go in the basement.
Okay, so in 2010, it was announced that a live-action version of this film was in development by director Wolfgang Peterson, who has directed films like The Never-Ending Story,
Falcor,
I'm Luck Dragon. But there's been no update since then.
14 years later, nothing.
The tall and short bartenders on Paprika's website are voiced by director Satoshi Kon and the original author of the Paprika novel, Yasutaka Tsutsui. You weirdo.
The weird mother.
While trying to escape being captured, Paprika enters a room with numerous classical paintings. One of the paintings she enters is Oedipus and the Sphinx by Gustave Moreau. The original is held at the Met.
At the end of the film, Detective Konakawa is going to see a film called Dream Machine. This was the final film that Satoshi Kon was developing before it was left incomplete due to him passing away from, again, pancreatic cancer. When Paprika enters Tokida's dream, she surfs through the sky on a cloud dressed as a warrior. This can be seen as an Easter egg referring to Son Goku and his flying Nimbus from Dragon Ball, but she also is wearing a crown, has a staff. That seems to be a reference to the Chinese mythical figure known as Sun Wukong, or the Monkey King.
See, that's what I thought it was, because actually Goku is a pastiche of the Monkey King, because obviously he has the tail. That's a really cool. I mean, there's several comics, there's several books and movies on the Monkey King. Go check that out. What a fucking cool character. If you ever wanted to get into a cool character, the Monkey King is so cool.
All right, let's get into our final thoughts here. Aaron, what are your final thoughts on Paprika? Again, we kind of covered it somewhat in depth. I think we were missing someone much smarter than you and I to be here in this conversation, because this is a challenging film. This is something that requires discussion. As we said, it's one of the reasons why we wanted to cover it, is because you and I wanted to sort of talk our way through it. But I feel like even at the end of this, even looking it up and watching it twice and discussing it with you here, I feel like there's still so much of this film that I have not discovered. And maybe that's a good thing about the film, right? But at the same time, it remains a mystery. And I think both of us can say that we are often frustrated whenever we don't fully wrap our arms around a film and sort of gather what it's trying to say.
I think, there's this idea of art house film. Mm-hmm. I really feel like that's the cool thing about anime in and of itself, is that there is an opportunity every time you watch it, because, unlike a live action film where there is a lot of detail put into scenes, there's a lot of detail put into the costuming, things like that. It's still done by a group of just so many people with I would say most having different visions, where with an anime, it feels like everybody who's on a movie, on a team like that, they all have to have a very clear vision, but it's also done by hand. So they create so much more little detail that's involved with it. So every time you watch it, you're going to find something new, whether it's a little, think of Disney films and all the little Easter eggs that are put in there. Some character, the father from Tarzan, he's being shaken upside down by monkeys, and a little pendant falls out of his pocket that's a reference to another Disney movie. Things like that. There's only certain things that you can find in animes, and there's only certain things that you can see each time you watch it. And I think that's the beautiful thing about anime, is that it's created to be, just like Shrek would appreciate in Donkey. It's meant to be layered. It's meant to be appreciated on so many different levels. You and I can watch a Dragon Ball Z movie or a Dragon Ball movie and be like, man, this is exactly like what we loved when we were kids. But then also seeing the emotional issues that go on between, Chi-Chi and Goku, or Gohan having to be left behind or learning to be a better father than his dad. We don't see that as kids. We're like, oh, my dad's going to go fucking fight Frieza. Fuck yeah. But we don't see that his family's being left behind. So much like Paprika and, me understanding what's going on with Detective Konakawa, it felt like my maturity had brought on a new level of appreciation for this film. Mm-hmm. And I really like that about that. So it's a nice realization to have. It's cool to understand the references. I think it's silly to be upset if anybody is upset that they're very similar, because one could not be as cool as the other without the other.
Yeah, I love Inception, and I think that Paprika is a better version of that. I mean, in a lot of ways. So, yeah, that'll do it for our coverage of Paprika. Our second installment in the Midnight Rewind saga has concluded, Aaron. Episode 160 is in the books. Next week we are off, and then going into episode 161, we're going to just go the complete opposite direction, Aaron. We're going to go from highbrow anime to maybe one of the dumbest comics that I've ever read, which is we're going to bring back our comic spotlight, and we're going to be talking about Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. Because, of course, Deadpool Wolverine's coming out at the end of July. We'll be at San Diego Comic-Con when that happens. And I think a lot of people, us included, anticipate that they're going to take a lot of elements from that story and bring it into the MCU. So have you ever read Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe?
I have not, but it's funny. The moment you say like one of the dumbest comics you've ever read, you've never read a comic called Cockchew.
That's valid point. Good. Yeah, you're right. I have not read that. Maybe I'll put it on my pull list.
Don't.
I'll get the variant. No,
don't waste your fucking time.
Okay.
It's literally about a giant kaiju with a big dick going around and fucking this city up, literally and figuratively.
All right, I'm going to secretly add it to my poll right now. But next, like I said, in 2 weeks that'll be our next episode, and we'll, like I said, we're in preparation for Deadpool and Wolverine, which we're very excited. The only Marvel Studios film of 2024, Aaron.
I don't know if you can hear it. There is a severe lightning storm like building up outside.
Are you sure, or are you just dreaming it? Is this a dream?
That's a very good question.
We don't know.
Let's
get out of here before the clown parade shows up.
People are gonna have no idea what we're talking about. We're just like subscribe to our podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcasts, your favorite podcasts. That's where we are, because we know we're your favorite.
That's
all right. Here we go. Thank you to our patrons: Alex, Alice, Aaron, Botta from Shortbox, Brad B, Cassidy, Chris from the Bada Boom Pod, Chris J, Christy, Danny, David, Elliot, George, Greg from First Issue Club, Haley, Ham6, Jake from Spectales, Jake S, Jeremy, Kenny, Kyle, Losi, Mac, Miles, Mike, Robert, Sean from I Used to Like This One, Travis, and Bradley from Comic Book Couples Counseling. Okay, I fucked it up a little bit, but I got it. Okay.
That's pretty good.
Follow us on social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads at Oblivion Bar Pod. Thank you, Omnibus, for sponsoring the show. Use the link in our show notes to upgrade how you read comic books digitally. Remember, it's bitchin'.
It's bitchin'.
Official merch of the show can be found at our website, oblivionbarpodcast.com. Thank you, Kevin Ziegler, for all of our Oblivion Bar art. He's at the Zig Zone on Instagram. Thank you, Dream Kid, for all of our musical themes. Thank you, DJ Skyvac, for our grid theme. Thank you, Fantasy Shop, for sponsoring the show. And last but not least, Chris, do not forget to tip your bartenders 20% or more, or
we will haunt your dreams. We will come and heard that one. Maybe this is real.
Or you're gonna get struck by lightning.
All right, everybody. We will see you in 2 weeks for our coverage of Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. Until then, bye-bye.
Peace.